It's there? Yeah. Very good. Okay. So in the end, it could be worse. You see. So, so I will come there. I will just take my presenter. Where is my backpack? Here. So I will take my presenter and come here and perform my duty from there. And perhaps, who knows, maybe we will get some technical support.
Ja, ich muss jetzt noch ein bisschen was hakeln, ja.
Okay,
Ich bin schon froh, dass wir überhaupt was machen.
so sorry, I have to be here because if I'm not here, then
Ja, nee.
you see this.
Nee, ist er nicht.
So, what I am going to
Das war
do
der Herr Timper.
in fact, to oh, no, I can even do it from there. What I'm going to do is to explain what do we mean. No, it wouldn't work. What do we mean via Helmholtz?
So. Habe ich jetzt mal hier irgendwas? Okay, ich habe eine Katze.
So this is an impulse flow transit. And then I would like to highlight that we are dealing now with a problem which you think can be solved with a linear complexity, but it is not true. It is an NP-complete problem because there are several momenta here which need to be added. And one is this one, which is maybe, you know, what some colleague from Institute X and organization Center X is working on and interested in. And then there is a blue one, which is what maybe Center Y is interested in. And then there is a yellow one, and so on. So each one of us sees themselves in a different direction in the future. And also, you know, there are some external constraints. For instance, there is a German national program which is coming, 650 million, which is trying to push the whole field in a direction which is not necessarily exactly the same of what we are doing, each one of us. And then we want the resulting thing to be this black line, which points into what BMBF wants from us. And why is this not a linear problem, but an NP-complete problem? Because, well, what we want does not necessarily coincide a priori with what BMBF wants. So what we have to do here, today and tomorrow, and the next edition of this workshop that we're going to have in a couple of months, is to package all of these things together in order to get a nice black line. And in doing this, we want the NP complete complexity is there. Because we don't want only BMBF to be happy, but we want every one of us to be happy. And if you look at this a priori, you will say, this is impossible. It is an over-constrained problem. There is no way that we can make BMBF happy and all of us happy. This is our challenge, okay? Because also among us, we have different and divergent interests. And still, let me assure you, I know this can happen. I made this happen with 28 member states of the European Union. It works. It brings a lot of money. Everybody is quite happy. So the important thing is that we are clear on which things every one of us wants, and we also know what BMBF wants. And then we will be able to see that, oh yes, of course these things are in resonance. Because we start, so it's backward reverse engineering, we assume that BMBF will be happy, and that we will be happy, and the only question is, how is that going to happen? And this is what we write in our document. This is what I mean by a roadmap. Okay? So just to highlight the simplicity of this process, here I have slides which some of you have already seen, which is a very simplified version of the process that I put together to get the European Flash. It is, as I said, oversimplified, but it is just to give a little bit of an impression of different actors. Each of these arrows is one document, and there are many of these documents, and we'll come back to that later, already at the Helmholtz side. And this is, as I said, an oversimplified version of how we got to get a flagship. And since some of my colleagues in this country, they think that this is too chaotic, so I put it in a more sort of linear and familiar form for them. So this is a time scale. But what we have to bear in mind, I was having a conversation with Crystal before starting the workshop today. And she was, I would say, rightfully disappointed because she was delivering the third version of a proposal to BNBF for some specific thing in quantum technologies, which they have refused, and time was passing, and patience was needed, and so on and so forth. And you see here there are a lot of steps which are going on. Okay? What I'm saying is those steps are coming for a very complicated interaction of many momenta, which we have to make all of them converge. Okay? And so my view on how this can happen is, I mean, just my experience, is a limited experience. It's of course much easier, much less difficult than bringing Helmholtz to converge toward one goal. Much easier. It was just a community of about 5,000 people, 28 member states, and we wrote one quantum manifesto. I know that this quantum manifesto, in comparison with the Helmholtz quantum strategy, is an easy thing, and that what we are doing today is mission impossible. Many people have told me that. I am aware of that. But still, this is the only experience I have. And so I am telling you a little bit what I mean when we speak about strategy here. So the point is that this table, as I like to tell, made my computer collapse several times 1.5 years ago, because my computer is a classical device which runs Microsoft software. And this table made it collapse several times because I reached the physical limit for track changes in Word, which, in case you don't know, 120 authors. And this is connected to the fact that I wanted this table to reflect what really everyone in the community is doing and wants to do, but still to put it in an overall view which fits what politics wanted to hear. So it is an overconstraint problem. Every one of us needed to make sure that they are happy with this, and we want to make sure that politics is happy with this. Of course, this is a horrible slide because it is written too little. The point is not reading each one of these points. The point I want to make is that, for each one of these points, there were several authors editing them and changing and twisting one comma and adapting things. And this is the challenging part. Getting something which we all agree upon, in which everybody can find themselves, but that still does not look like a collection of things which are disparate and not compatible with each other, but it looks like something which is one line. Okay? So this is a challenge that we have. This is what the BNBF says Helmholtz does not have yet, and I agree to some extent. There are a lot of these documents which were in the messy thing that I showed before. They exist for Helmholtz, but a linear thing does not exist. This is what we are trying to get. Fraunhofer has it. I'm trying to provoke you here even more. Fraunhofer has it, and some of my colleagues say, but Fraunhofer has no experience in quantum. They have much less experience and expertise in quantum than we have at Helmholtz. And I honestly would tend to agree. But they packaged it in a very fantastic form, which BNBF is very happy and gives us as an example. So should we be upset about this? Probably yes, but that's not the point. The point is how we make something which then works for everybody. So this is the sort of flag on the flagship, which is about developing one vision and one common mission. And the mission, in this case, bringing together all these different aspects of simulation, communication, sensing, metrology, and so on, was to say we build a quantum web, which within 20 years from now will connect in a secure way all possible quantum computers that you have, maybe of different sorts, and this is a conversation we are having with Crystal, for instance, via secure channels, getting data from quantum sensors, and distributing high precision signals from quantum metrology. So, of course, this is diverse, and of course, this is an attempt to package together things which per se might be separate. Okay? But this is the way in which we can say there is one label under which every one of us can find themselves. So this is a little breakdown. Of course, the way you present it is you say there is one common vision, and then it breaks down into pieces. But of course, the way in which you construct it is just, of course, the reverse, which is we start from, what am I doing? Am I doing something which is related to one of these areas? how do they come together? This is what we are trying to do also in this couple of days here. So this is a structure with a basis of basic science, the 4 areas: communication, computation, simulation, and sensing metrology, some transverse horizontal areas, which are engineering control, software theory, and also components of education and training. And all of these are very relevant for the Helmholtz mission. So, well, how does this connect into making one quantum flagship, and how does this connect with the external world? Because this is another question that we are going to be asked by the MBA. So there are these 5 areas there, and around that, okay, there are different what we call missions, and one could be in terms of computing, like building the first quantum computer in Europe. And about quantum communication, it could be that there's a goal of building a pan-European secure quantum network, and so on and so forth. So in each of these examples means we have one area, but there is something which comes out for society, something that we can promise with a certain degree of risk, but that we can claim it will come out. So this is, again, Helmholtz, excellent research for the benefit of society. So what comes out, what can people get out of what we are doing? Why should they pay for it? And then around, again, there are these different programs, and in the case of the European context, the framework for research, framework for space, the one on digital Europe. And now, in our case, what will it be? It will be our wonderful POF. It will be the wonderful Bundesrahmenprogramm for quantum technologies, which has been announced with 650 million some time ago. And then the question is, how do we relate to all these ingredients? And of course, in this case, the science part at European level connects to the framework program for research, the space part connects to the space program, with this pan-European secure stuff, there is infrastructure, which connects to this digital Europe channel, which has to do with high-performance computing and putting a layer of quantum on top of it. And by the way, many of these things are relevant for us. This is why I'm putting them here, because of space, we have DLR representatives today here. Of course, in terms of HPC, we have the Unix Supercomputing Center, and in terms of hardware and others, many of the centers which we have here contribute. So the point is, where do we sit and how do we connect to the external world? And of course, this is the educational dimension, and also, of course, we have I think 8,500 PhD students in the Helmholtz Society altogether. And then there are external entities. For instance, in this case, it would be member states. In our case, at national level, it could be the other organizations. Is it Fraunhofer? Is it Max Planck? Is it Leibniz? And so on. And so, in the case of the quantum fleet, not just the flagship, there is this organization of member states, 32 planning organization of 28 member states converging on the same strategy. And there is a metrology organization, and then there is the European Space Agency. And all of this, again, I'm saying this because this is, again, a very messy slide. It's another training. So why on earth is it now possible that they converge and they say, let's do something together? Well, because also there we started from the community. We started asking, what are you interested in? How can we subsume this into a whole vision? This is what we did with our roadmap. This is what we did with our quantum manifesto. This is the same thing we are going to try and do here and in the next couple of months. So I'm giving this as an analogy to how I view what we could try to achieve. And then, of course, there's a dimension which is even maybe external about international cooperation. And also here, this is something where Helmholtz can contribute. So this is a slide which is in German because, well, of course, because it is Amtssprache. And this is a slide about the ministry. And actually, it is also because we had thought that we do this event in German before. And then some colleagues said, no, let's have it in English, and so we switched. But it was not quick enough to switch the language of the slide, even though deepl.com could do it. But here, I like to give it in German because it gives an impression of what is happening, so what they want, okay? So this is a series of quotes that I copied and pasted from my notes from discussions with several people within the MBF at different levels, okay? They are meant to upset you, and they are meant, I put them there, so that you think the MBF is saying this and they are wrong, okay? Because our goal is to prove them wrong. But this is what they think at the moment, okay? So So what they say is that the Helmholtz Society says, the market field, we do a lot of things, but they say, the MDF says, it's not clear which role we have. It's not clear which difference we make. So it follows that in our paper we have to put what is our strategic positioning. This is what we do, this is what others do. How do we differentiate? Then they say that we are not really set up in a proper way, okay? For instance, they mention this from Hopper paper, which they say is very nice, strategic, and so on and so forth. And again, I'm putting it here to provoke you and to provoke our leadership, because, as I said before, several people think, and I hope there are no microphones in this room which are picking up what I'm saying, that in Fraunhofer, as I said, there is much less, say, experience, or maybe competence, but certainly one can say experience in the quantum domain that we have in Helmholtz. And still the idea is happy with their data, not with ours. Okay? So we have to fix this. Yeah? And the point is, it goes to where are the different weights, the importance of all the different actors here, which is us, which is our bank, and so on and so forth. So this is connected to an expectation from the minister herself. So she expects, and this is good news, that we push forward in a very strong way the quantum technology topic. Okay? And what this requires, also in order for her to have the appropriate weight, let's say in the discussions with the Ministry for Economic Affairs and so on, what it requires is that we structure things, that we say what is the status quo, here we are now, and how we want to proceed, what are the steps in the future. And now several of you who have contributed to papers which exactly write this will be, I hope, upset, because they say, how come? How is that possible? We already gave this to them. How can they tell us it does not exist? Okay? And here comes a very, so maybe the most important piece of wisdom that I gathered in my career, which is the following. We, and each one of you, we are scientists. You think logically. You are used to imagine that arguments have an effect. This is wrong. Okay? Please note it on your notebook. What we are doing here, of course, has to do with logics and arguments and has to be scientifically solid. We have to be happy with it. Okay? We are not going to write some nonsense. I can tell you, I have been asked by different, even by a couple of heads of cabinet of vice president of the European Commission to write some nonsense for them so that they can sell it upstairs. We don't want to do this. For sure not. But we also should be aware that it is not sufficient. We are convinced that arguments and logics and content is sufficient because when we talk to colleagues, this works. Not so with politics. Okay? That's not how politics works. Still, we can bring some good stuff into politics if we take some good input and we package it in a way which they will understand. So we have to figure out what they want. And still we can do some good stuff. But we have to package it and to express it and to structure it in the way they want to have it. Okay? And the way they want to have it is a very simple, who does what with whom and why. Meaning what are our goals, what are the partners, what is the connection with industry, and so on and so forth, and to which activities do we commit, and which budget do we have for that. And of course, you may say, this is redundant with the POF, so why are we doing that? And the answer is, I just told you 2 minutes ago that thinking logically is wrong. So of course, it's the same that we should be doing in the POF. Okay? So of course, there should be no reason why we do it twice. And the consequence is, yes, we do it twice. Okay? And why is that? So the motivation, which I hope is a good motivation for you to have come here, is that there is a very huge bonbon over there, which is not just the top, but the 650 millions of these national programs, to which we can access. And if we make it right, these 2 days and the following process, we can get a lot more visibility and not only resources, but an important role for us towards the future. Okay, so that's the expectations from Helmholtz. And now, I want to upset you even more. So I have a couple of slides which are meant to, as I said, upset you. So, in terms of positioning, yeah, we will have, so there, and unfortunately Kathleen, because she got an infection, but heroically she is going to speak a lot these 2 days, is our colleague Ruth Legner from Personal Centrum Munich, who is going to facilitate the day. So she invented a wonderful script for our 2 days, and she is going to lead us through some exercises which go, for instance, in this direction, like how do we position ourselves. And so here's an example of an exercise that I did a couple of months ago about where do we see ourselves on a two-dimensional surface in which on one axis we have technology readiness level, so how close we are to applications with activities, and on the other axis is how much is it, let's say, bottom-up versus top-down. Okay? And so here in this corner there is the Max Planck Society, which of course is maybe more fundamental and more bottom-up. And over there, up there, there are of course industries which want high technology readiness level, and they go for a strategy. And then I try together with some people of my team back in Ulm to imagine, figure out where the different actors could be. And I imagine you would disagree with this. And much more people from this other organization would disagree. And that's exactly the point. We go through this process, we disagree, and then we find something which is maybe a common vision about where we are, which we can support. So that's one example. Another example, zooming in on the quantum computing aspect, which maybe is not concerning all of you. So we can see here that there are different aspects. One is software, and the other one is hardware. And then there are a lot of companies which are, some of them aim at providing full stack, so everything from hardware to software. And this is also part of this unique proposal that I was discussing over lunch with Crystal. There are companies which are, consulting and providing expertise on how you can use this thing. There are customers, including, motor companies and oil companies which want to use these things. I was discussing over lunch with Karl Jansen about CERN now being very interested in using quantum computers for future data processing. And then there is academic research, and the theory is more on the software side, and the experiment is more on the hardware side. This is what some people call the qubit community and the theory community. And then there is, where are we? Where is Helmholtz? And here is a few of the centers. And again, this is to upset you. So if you don't, if you see that you don't fit there, and you want to stand up and say, no, you have to change this, then this is exactly what we want to do here. So those pictures, those diagrams, we have not circulated them, we have not published them. It is only a draft, like a sketch, as a stimulus for discussion, to find something of this sort where we all can find ourselves. And so the whole process is, and again, I didn't translate this into English over lunch, sorry about that, is, of course, we start from the bottom in thinking, like, what do we do? What is interesting for us? And then we elaborate upwards, vision and a mission. And then the way in which we present it is we will say, everything follows, of course, deductively from a very important mission which is given from God, or maybe some higher power, such as Mr. Bistler, and then everything else that we do comes from that. And then this is, of course, a narrative. It is for politicians. It is non-logical, if you wish. But it can be helpful that we do it because we don't want to leave this to be done by politicians. We want scientists to do this to make sure that what comes down at the end also makes sense and can be done. So that's the process in the two ways, as I see it, that we are doing here. So here are, again, in the last few minutes, I guess in the last 3 minutes, because I have more or less half an hour, I think, for this impulse, a little bit of details on the headings for this document that you have received. It was circulated yesterday, I believe, by Jan Timpa, about the sections that we want to have in this document. And one is, of course, the context, of quantum technologies, what happens at the EU national level, and of course, then going down, what is the strategy of the fast hierarchical method, and then what is then the context and the expectation for the Helmholtz strategy. Yeah? And the main goal here is that we want to shape the national strategy in the most effective possible terms, as I said before. And so the idea here is that first we will start in this document by explaining what are the national and the European actors here, how do we match, how do we fit into existing things, and how do we differentiate ourselves with respect to other players. And then we will also see how do we, what is our position in the context of quantum technologies in Germany. Okay, and of course, again, this is how the document will look like, and the way we create it is from the last section up somehow. But then, the narrative will be, okay, here is what happens abroad, and then it follows that it is reasonable for Helmholtz to be working in this context and have these strategies, and those centers from which every one of you are coming, they are necessary to cover the different aspects. Okay, so this is this strategy. Okay? And then, of course, as I said many times, we want for our roadmap a bottom-up process. Okay, so we will have working groups, which Mrs. Lena is going to help us construct and manage. And then we will identify topics. We'll identify, what needs to be done, who is responsible, and what is the long-term vision, also in connection to people and actors outside of Helmholtz. And then this will mean how do we position ourselves, what are cooperations, and what are the different division of roles with other institutions. We may also ask the question, this is a topic which I added to this presentation, to the document, after having a conversation with Mr. Axman and Mr. Dittus at the DLR the other day, when Mr. Dittus said, well, to do disruptive research and innovation, we may need disruptive instruments. We may need new instruments. And one question is, for instance, if we need to create new startups, the existing instruments, are they sufficient or not? Do we need new stuff? Of course, in Helmholtz, we have the specificity in DLR, in Jülich, in Karlsruhe, to have Projektträger, so agencies which deal with this. We can learn a lot from that. Actually, yesterday I also discussed this topic with Mr. Zeisel at the IDF in Bonn, and they said we already have a lot of instruments which exist for doing these things. So this is part of the discussion that we are going to have. So which instruments do we need? Which kind of calls? How should it be structured from our point of view? And yes. And this is, so since often when when you give talks, people like to take pictures, I see that this is not happening. Probably all of you are too bored to take any pictures of my talk, but now is an opportunity. In case you resist the temptation, you can take a picture of this, and it will download on your cell phone the full library of documents, which are very many megabytes, which I put there on Shiego. Actually, it's a Latin word, it's not keyboard, Shiego. This I will know. So all of the documents that we consider relevant for this, which is the national strategy of the Bundesregierung, which is this Fraunhofer paper, which is all the papers which have been produced within Helmholtz, which is the Quantum Manifesto. So all of the things that I have mentioned, which are relevant for this process, you can get it from there, and we will share, all the results of the discussion, and we structure the discussion and the activity of the groups via this method. So tomorrow the goal is to be there with a list and structure of topics, of themes, and responsible people who in the next weeks are going to write it up so that we get to this overall strategy. So I think that I am finishing my 30 minutes. I still have not given up completely hope that there might be someone here who is going to make this thing work.
We'll try again.
We may hope so, because it may be more practical for speakers. So I am done now. Okay. Let us try. Maybe with yours it will work. Maybe it was the fault of my computer. Who knows? And then, so I would like to give it over to Mrs. Lengner, who is going to tell us a little bit how we are going to do this. It was really my fault, you see. It was my fault.
Oh, I haven't worked any yet. Let's see. Here you go.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus der Quantenwelt. Quantentechnologien sind mittlerweile in aller Munde. Sie haben unzweifelhaft das Potenzial, eine Quantenrevolution zu ermöglichen. Die Gestaltung dieser Revolution erfordert Know-how auf vielen unterschiedlichen Gebieten. Aufgrund der Notwendigkeit zu interdisziplinärer Zusammenarbeit und zur Bearbeitung von Quantenthemen von den Grundlagen bis in die Anwendung ist Helmholtz die ideale Organisation, um Spitzenforschung für Quantentechnologien der Zukunft voranzutreiben. Schon heute haben wir zahlreiche brillante Köpfe, wir haben große Kompetenz und ein breites Anwendungsspektrum und wir können auf lang etablierten Kooperationen aufbauen. Wir müssen und wir werden bei der Erforschung und Entwicklung von Quantentechnologien in Deutschland und international eine Führungsrolle einnehmen. Dafür ist es entscheidend wichtig, dass unsere exzellenten Köpfe jetzt zusammenkommen. Gemeinsam werden sie alle eine langfristige Forschungsvision und eine effiziente Forschungsstrategie erarbeiten. Das ist auch deshalb wichtig, weil wir uns noch stärker als bisher in nationale, europäische und internationale Aktivitäten einbringen müssen. Für den Workshop, an dem ich selbst leider nicht teilnehmen kann, wünsche ich Ihnen viel Erfolg. Ich danke Ihnen allen von Herzen für Ihr Engagement und freue mich auf die Ergebnisse und auf den künftigen Austausch mit Ihnen.
So you can see, he said exactly what I said before, and I promise I had not to watch this video.
Just 30 seconds.
Yes. So it was completely useless.
So, good afternoon. I would like to welcome you again from my side to this workshop. My name is Ruth Lengner, and my real job is not being a moderator, but my real job is that I am the executive assistant to Mr. Schmidt as a member of the board of directors in Forschungsprojekt. But I would like to facilitate you to come to this roadmap paper give you the opportunity to wrap up all your input in as few hours as possible, because your time is precious, and that's why we try to make it in some different way maybe than you are used to. And that's how we do it. So, I think pictures sometimes say more than 1,000 words. We start now together, because our vision is having this roadmap maybe in February, March, to hand it over to our minister. How do we do it today? Today we start with the presentations from the centers. This is the bridge towards our first steps on our road to our roadmap. Then we'll hear something about the project management, which kind of opportunities there are to get money and funds from BMF or whatever. Then we'll talk again about the structure of the paper itself. And this is the green graphs. This is where your science input comes in. This is what we need from you, and you are needing to get the input, the scientific input, what you want to get included in this paper. And last but not least, there has to be a more concrete look on the paper itself. So you have to find milestones and boulders, maybe, which you have to point out in this paper to hand it over to our minister, so that they all see, yes, you do this step and this step and this step, and You know all the boulders which have to be overcome. So that's how we'll do it, hopefully. And you are having to do the input. I'm just the one to try to help you to get it as fast and as productive as possible. So, and the first 2 hours now are reserved to the input from the centers, so that everybody in this room gets a view of what each center, which is active in QT, is doing and what are their focus. So, and Jan Temper will lead through this session because I'd like to try to not speak so much today. And Jan.
Yeah. So I learned that a few people are coming late. Among them, unfortunately, is also Stefan Tautz, who will give the talk for Forschungszentrum Jülich. So we can't start with this one, obviously. May I suggest that we start, for example, with the KIT talk?
Now it is the plug and pray.
Plug and not play.
Oh no, please don't.
Just a matter of
Yeah.
volunteer.
You see, it was really my fault. Yeah. Special.
Wow, incredible. Would you like to start it from the beginning?
Okay.
Good. So, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Mathieu Le Tacon. I'm from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, where I'm the director of the Institute for Solid State Physics. And I'm going to show you some of the things that we do in the direction of quantum materials and technology at KIT. So this is a very touchy and sketchy presentation that has been assembled mostly in the train coming here today, with input from many, last-minute input from many colleagues. Not all of them, obviously, but I hope to give you a bit of an overview of what are the activities we have here. So this is a slide I actually got from Mario Ruben and Wolfgang Danzapper that summarizes a bit what we do in the direction quantum. So technology is a bit too restrictive in my opinion for objectives there, because of course there's a lot of things that starts from the materials and the molecule that we use to play with the quantum phenomena. We eventually encode some quantum information. And basically these two things, the materials and molecules and the theory, are really two things that are currently very active in the current POF. Okay? And we have two other things, which are scalable quantum hardware and quantum engineering, which are present at KIT, but were not included so far in the POF and in Helmholtz work. And we are going to bring these four things together to make it a new institute for quantum materials and technology. And the idea is to use the materials and molecules that we synthesize and play with at KIT to do some actual quantum hardware and devices. So there's a wide range of expertise from molecule synthesis, from single crystals, from spectroscopy on these materials, and then from engineering of qubits, microwaves, development of quantum algorithm, and quantum optics hardware that are available and are a bit dispatched, and we try to bring this all back together in the Helmholtz works in the next couple of years. So I made some kind of selections. So for some Forschungsinstruments in PI, it was just impossible to do this at the Arbeitsgruppenebene. First of all, in 10 minutes, it doesn't make sense. And there are really many people that would be involved. And quite frankly, even when you think of the BOF and what would PITS be, it's not so clear. So there is one first thing which is really about materials and superconducting materials that we are doing very actively, and conventional superconductors and related phenomena, but also quantum spin on surface, myons, fermions, and skyrmions, molecular and solid single photon emitters and sensors. So these are really going from the materials to some physical phenomenon and eventually a device. The goal is really to understand at the fundamental level and to control the interaction and the quantum fluctuations in these materials. We eventually exploit this to develop new tools to design the materials with stellar functionalities and to drive and manipulate quantum effects in hetero nanostructures, circuits, and device made out of these materials. Okay, so there are some examples from some of the DI. Ralph sent me, it was originally on the slide, but he sent me a website. So Poker is particularly active and doing these things using carbon nanotubes, for instance, and graphene structure, where he is using it, for instance, to create a single photon source. So coherent, quantum coherent single photon source, and also in detectors. And he wants also to integrate molecular qubits towards on-chip manipulation with light, control the qubits with light matter interaction in these optical cavities that they're doing. So this recent review of the activity just published in Nature Mathematics. The other important aspect, and Wolfgang is just sent us an email to say that he's trained late because he had some teaching in the morning, but he's to arrive in 2 hours or so. And Mario Ruben are especially active in the field of so-called molecular spin qubits. So there they use some molecules that are synthesized by Mario and the chemists at KIT, and Wolfgang is playing with it. A super fast cryostat and try to encode, so to implement some quantum algorithm using the nuclear spin of these molecules or the molecular spins of the molecules. So this is a recent research examples where they implement this proper quantum search algorithm on one molecule. And of course, one big challenge in the thing is that they can make one single qubit from one molecule. And the challenge is a bit to upscale this and try to make multi-qubit systems based on this approach. The other, so Wolfgang and Mario are currently already in the grant program, and they will play a key role in the next portfolio. And one thing that is also very important is really about the quantum circuit, the superconducting quantum circuit. So that's something which is relatively strong in Karlsruhe. So these are the activities from the experimental point of view of the group of Alexei Ustinov, Hannes Kopinger, and Johan Popp. So Johan is coming with Wolfgang in a few hours. And from the theoretical point of view with Sasha Schneemann, who is sitting here, and very happy of doing what I'm doing now. So the idea here is really to use superconductors. So the stage is mostly made out of aluminum and to make these quantum circuits and try to make a lot of qubits and getting them to talk to each other to make quantum circulations with these circuits. And I think this was not something that was again in the Helmholtz course so far, and that it could be heavily followed. So here are some planned research topics. So of course, the important thing is to develop key component of current superconducting quantum circuits. So this includes all the key elements, so the low loss transaction junctions, superconducting nanowires. But they also want to do it with exploring new materials, particularly the materials on which we are working on the more quantum material side. To not limit themselves to aluminum or granular aluminum, to develop a new qubit concept and basically to try to push forward the multi-qubit circuitry that's going to be necessary to eventually build the quantum. There's also a very strong technological component in advancing the cryogenic technology and the microwave development. Another very important thing is Tabidunga. So right now it's completely not, it's not at all in the Helmholtz world. He's been appointed as a professor to Montreal School, and his specialty is really quantum optics. And he just is coordinating a quantum flagship project where try to make a multifunctional quantum register for quantum repeaters, and I don't even know how to translate that in English. With rare earth ions.
See, you should give this talk in German.
Absolutely. Yes, the BMBF project for spin photon interface for quantum repellers with ND Center. So this is also together with people in Stuttgart, Barthof, for instance. And so, and he also has some activities already in the strategic fund innovation. That was funded. So this is basically more on the quantum optics side, but also with some interaction on the material side. And again, it's not yet in the Helmholtz world, but I received this slide also this morning. So now it's more really on the technological side. So it's one thing to have materials to make quantum technology and to have the qubits, but then you need to control them and you need to do the electronics technology that goes with it. So integrable scalable control and without electronics for qubits. And there again, there's more on the engineer side. And that's a group of Mark Weber and Oliver Sander who are doing this. So Oliver is supposed to come. I've seen the name tag somewhere. We don't know each other actually, but we're together. So maybe you can comment on this if you're willing to. Okay. So, yes, perfect. And last but not least, we have all the theory. So far, I mostly discussed about the experiment, but of course, we know that's very important that experimentalists and theoreticians talk together, and we have a whole bunch of experts with Alexander Mielin, Jörg Schmalian, Alexander Schneermann, and Michel Martaler, and also Igor Brony, who are working on various questions that are relevant for the quantum world, so starting with quantum simulations in various kind of systems, computation, correlated systems, space edition, quantum simulations of molecules, and here I want to highlight that Michel Martaler is also the CEO and founder of an actual spin-off company from Heisenberg, who is setting up some quantum simulations algorithm. Might be also something good to say here. And issues like suppression of decoherence or another qubit design based again on new materials. So that's again my hopeful summary of the situation in KIT that encompasses pretty much all the things that might be relevant for this. You want to ask questions, comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, well, I have a comment. I think this was wonderful. This is exactly the type of thing we want. We don't want, we are not at the stage in which we want something polished and so on. We want a lot of raw material, which gives the impression of the diversity. And one especially important point for me, which I would like to ask, is in the beginning you said, there is something which we are doing which I do not see it fits in quantum technologies. Yeah?
Well, yeah.
And this is good because it may we are at the stage in which we are opening up. It may be that you say there is this thing that we do, which is very relevant for quantum Helmholtz, let's say QH, yeah, but it is not in QT in the sense of these roadmaps and so on. And you may say, okay, should we include this or not? And then we can discuss. And this is exactly the type of thing that we need to have here. So can you elaborate on that?
No, what I mean is that as mostly as a simple experimental idea about technology, I mostly see it as an engineering, from an engineering perspective, so to say, which is really more going towards applications and you also said that something that can be useful from society. But again, when we talk about 1 qubit or a few qubits, whether we can already put this in the technology, it is really the Grundlage of fundamental research. And to me, it is a bit still at the edge of what would be encompassed in this generic technology wording. So it's maybe a separation between applied and fundamental and applied. So when I read all these quantum roadmaps, everything really goes towards application products and all things that seems to be more suitable at engineering stage for these upscaling things. But I think at the bottom, at the very fundamental level, there's still a lot of things to do. Agree. And I think Helmholtz has a role to play there as well.
What role will play the new set of optics on it? What is the fraction that we send it for optics? I know it's also for energy, but this could be.
I can't really give you a number here. I mean, what is done in the photonics, the optics and photonics further stage is a bit separate from the quantum perspective. And I don't want to say something wrong, but there's of course an important component that are not included here at all, which is all the so-called teratronics and super fast optical communication can be used for transmitting amount of data on a very fast time scale. Eventually, might be useful and coupled to that. That's a fraction, an important fraction of the work which is Helmholtz who is doing that. But right now, we have not really covered this and discussed this within the framework of quantum physics.
Another question: how close is your relation to the Russian? Because of Ustinov, I know that he is active there. I was a little bit involved, not as much as Tommaso is, but I was a little bit, you can see both sides. This feeling. But you have experience where Ustinov, so how close is your relation?
I know Alexei. It's very hard to catch him up because he's often in Russia. Yeah, I think his activities are pretty much both they have to both also embedded in the Russia.
It could not be considered as a German initiative in terms of our Helmholtz roadmap. It's too offside, right?
That's a good question.
We can discuss it.
Honestly,
Just it is, I know. The only thing I can say is there are three groups, subgroups of opinions, which are completely in house, which are all led by and these are purely parallel things in Russia, maybe more in the very beginning, as far as I know, they thought that to build a first Russian qubit, so it would build a very bad qubit, it would be a first Russian qubit, and they. So right now, I know about these plans at MIPT. It was so vague. So, but we can discuss that later.
So this is actually very vague. The idea is let's do something in Russia, but it is not very concrete on the computing side. What they are
5 years ago. Now I think they have a plan for it.
Well, I was at like 1.5 years ago at the midterm review. I'm still on the board, so where they are much more concrete is on the communication side.
I had a discussion with the president of MIT, and he like to approach us. But we can discuss that later in the framework of collaboration.
Oh yes, there is also the Russian government's investment bank, Financial Common Bank, who wants to. They claim since 1.5 years that they got from Mr. Putin $100 million to invest in doing the Russian quantum computer, But it's one of the things that they said many times and never came to any reality. But if the president of the pragmatically wants to do that, that's the new president, which is also an advantage, then we can discuss.
Further questions?
I will applaud the.
No, we cannot go. So we should use the time to like challenge what he's saying, like trying to ask and to find the connections. Right? It's not just like questions time like a normal talk. Is trying to start already going in the direction like does this thing fit, for instance, in any structure that we have seen before? Like you said, it's fundamental. So in this structure that I showed before with basic science and the four pillars, does it fit? Does it not? So what are the implications? In other words, we should all, after every talk, together start thinking what are the implications of what we have heard in terms of the data that we have we are going to put together. Yeah.
So we should first have presently picture.
We will certainly do that. Yeah, we will certainly do that. I just want to make sure that we sort of pick up individual things, so singularities in each thing, because it's not just gathering and then summarizing. It's also about adjusting. Like what interests me is there anything in what we have seen or maybe we will see afterwards which does not fit, for instance, in the structure that we are thinking in terms of content, or do we need something else?
So here I have myself a comment on that. Because typically it's the whole research on materials, new materials and new types of qubits and new materials for qubits, which is if I look at the roadmap and I make a control F materials, that word doesn't exist. It's not written anywhere in the entire roadmap document. It's not the word material, and I'm not a material scientist, but I find it a bit. Well, I still believe it's important to have this kind of thing. And the question is whether this has a place here or not in this initiative. To think along these lines, maybe look beyond aluminum, so to say, when you think of superconducting qubits. But at the same, I guess, when you want to go for the semiconductors qubit and all these kind of things, so all this material aspect and the basic research on the materials, the electronic structure and all this maybe more classical solid-state physics things. What role does it have to play? And I believe I'm not the only one here, and the Berlin people and the Dresden people as well are very strong in these aspects. And this might be also something that we need to discuss and decide what work might play.
So Sebastian and then Carl and then
Just a simple question, but to put it straight, you do a lot in this area, from theory to fundamental understanding, and also when it comes to electronics. But do you have own plans making a systems integration, making a device, a qubit connected system?
This is a bit the idea of making these new institutes. That right now we have really just peoples and groups that are really scattered and separated and don't really interact together. And the idea is to bring them all together in a group, so that the people who are really more doing the devices and people who are doing new kind of materials with such properties can talk together.
And that would be a superconducting system.
Mostly superconducting system, because so far this is where the expertise lies.
Please. So I have a specific question, but this might be more general. Experiments with optical lattices, trapped paint, or something like this?
No, there's no trapped optical lattice. No. So the only optical experiments that are done are those by David Unger, and they are mostly related to this envy center and this defect in diamonds or local impurities in the system.
It's actually much worse than that. Nowhere in Helmholtz there is any experiment.
This would have been my second question. Yes. The third question would have been, do we want to incorporate some way through cooperation or setting up a line going in this direction? Or are we considering that optical lattices, that all these experiments will drop out, in out?
I think in Germany there is a very strong expertise on this and certain very localized, for instance, in Munich, and well, they look very comfortable there and they have all the things they need. So whether we want them to vampirize us is also
No, but the question he's asking is a different one. So so you ask a question: do we miss quantum materials in our roadmap? And that's the question mark. And what he's asking is, should we liaise with someone in Germany which is doing that? And this points, and it's another question mark, and it points in the direction of with whom. So how do we distinguish ourselves? Clearly, we don't do that. Should we cooperate? And I clearly see faces of several people here, yes, which could interact a lot, with, I don't know, Immanuel Bloch in Munich. They have the experiment, and actually, you are already involved in some European network connecting to that, and you are also cooperating via Jens Eisert, for instance. Berlin is also connected to that. So this is one of the possible connections. So that's exactly the type of things the type of questions that we have to ask. And that's why I said let's go, punctually to identify those things.
Yeah, so this was really the point that
Yes.
is completely missing.
Yes.
Believed it.
Yes. And by the way, what you are saying, what he is saying, for those who don't know that, is extremely relevant also as a bridge to other fields, because he is from high energy physics, okay? And this bridge between quantum simulation and high energy physics is a great thing, and we should probably, my opinion, my answer to that question is, yes, of course we should, because this is a bridge in which we have at DAISY this expertise, and that we can do that in connection with Max Planck, so that's one typical thing that we should be doing.
It's always a good idea to involve energy physics. Can you repeat this?
Sorry, there was Hendrik and then Christian.
So I wanted to pick up this point on quantum materials. That's a provocative way to get the discussion going. It's clear that some materials are extremely important for quantum. Also clear that there's enormous competence. But I feel that the richness of materials is much broader than materials.
yeah.
And I'm a little bit concerned with the simplistic representation of materials, new materials, because quantum knowledge doesn't do justice to the materials competence. It also corner of one specific application, and on the other hand, is risk to dilute the quantum technology focus, because again, there's a patent that cover that. Very interesting for other purposes, very interesting science, maybe other technologies, but not in this narrowly defined context.
The question is, sorry for interrupting, the question is, do we want to define it narrowly or not? We don't have to borrow the definition that some people did in the quantum manifesto, for instance. That's a question, yeah? And if there is a lot of competence in quantum materials here, and it is not just in service of qubits, as you said, because of course he's coming from China, yeah? So this is one of the world's centers of excellence for quantum materials. Maybe this can be an expansion in that direction. Now I know that people here want to kill me but this is exactly what I wanted to happen. So now there is Crystal. No, you wanted to finish.
Maybe I
finish.
want to
You replied, and there is Crystal. Then
I want to answer to that with a somewhat an orthogonal response. I mean, this is quite clear that Helmholtz wants us to go in the direction of quantum computing, and we saw that when we discussed about the pop thing. Now, typically, I'm heading an institute where many people are working on materials and have a lot of expertise on these materials, and we don't have possibilities to all switch to do qubits and all these kind of things. So one has also to build up on what we can do and what we do already. So it doesn't mean necessarily keep on doing the same thing, but mostly based on this.
Yes, and in brutal terms, the question is: do we take all of you on board, or do we not?
I mean, at the pop level,
No, at the pop level, that's obvious. But this is different, because at the pop level, we do everybody, and here, we do part of everybody.
Yeah.
And so, do we want to be restrictive or not? I don't think it is intelligent to be too restrictive, my personal opinion. I also don't think it is intelligent to be too extensive, also my personal opinion. Now, Hendrik, wanted to finish because I interrupted him, please.
Yeah, it was a question of clarification. Be conclusive and say there's an important element, quantum material strategy, some of which feeds quantum technology, some of which is basic research, some of which.
If it's a matter of being
partly inclusive or not, this can actually be used as a tool to focus part of this material research really towards this goal of making, well, new qubit or new tensor detectors. I mean, when I showed the work of Ralph on graphene and nanotubes, for instance, as single photon emitters, I think this is perfectly relevant for this.
So those are questions, those are the typical strategy questions that we are going to answer in the next moment. So now there are other people, which is great, but people still want to kill me even more. I forgot to say that everybody should say who they are before they speak. Crystal, who are you?
So, okay, my name is Crystal. I have a small comment to the question about this optical aspect. So my recent experience is that another important question is that we clearly identify what we do not do. So here we are saying what we are doing, but we also have to clearly identify what we are not doing, and then maybe we can reach out to the rest.
Excellent. Perfect. Very convergent. And then there is you.
Okay. Well, Schneider from the Grünberg. I just want to make a comment on theory. We are not the only people thinking about roadmap. There is a big program which is just 2 weeks ago, I witnessed an extensive presentation. Actually, it guides a strong point, including all the aspects in this quantum program. So it's not just quantum, not just quantum information, includes quantum materials, because without the materials you will either have technology or computation. You can take a wide scope to the future. So, I mean, up to us what we are going to do.
Exactly. This is one thing in which we are going to have a very strong fight and to kill each other and to cut each other's throats. And that's why we are here. So thank you for raising that. Absolutely. We have to find a middle ground to do that. Yes, absolutely. Please.
Yeah, Oliver Hader from Berlin. I have a similar thing. Starts to build a layout of body like that, just to limit himself. So we should be working on time scale between visuals or side of.
Thank you. Fantastic. I see that we have some comments which are converging. So it's a good moment. Hello, welcome. To move on to the next talk, which I suppose is going to be given by Stefan Kraus, who was the first, and now is not the first. Right? Good.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Just a second. Yeah, I'm happy that I'm just in time, and I'm looking forward to explaining you the activities which we have at the Forschung Center in the field of quantum technology. So, okay, yeah. Yeah, so first of all, maybe it's a good idea to explain to you who are actually the players in Jülich who work on this topic. And these are quite a few, in fact, as you can see here. And it spans experiment, it spans theory, fundamental science, but also work which is directly related to quantum computing. So, most of these institutes actually are located at the Peter Grünberg Institute, and this is Quantum Theory of Materials, headed by Stefan Blügel. theoretical nanoelectronics, headed by Davide Di Vincenzo. Then functional nanostructural surfaces, this is me in fact. Electronic properties, headed by Klaus Schneider. And then the new Institute of Quantum Control, for which we could actually convince Tommaso Bellacco to join us. And then the Halbleiter Nanoelectronics Institute by Dieter Stutzmacher. There is also PGI 11, Institute of Quantum Information, and this is an institute which combines groups both from Jülich and from Aachen, so it's one of those Yara institutes, in fact. And so Di Vincenzo you've already seen, this is actually in PGI 2. But then Hendrik Blum from the RWTH in Aachen is joining that institute as well, or has joined it. And then there's a 13th PGI, which is headed quantum computation here, or quantum computing. Here, we're actually looking for a candidate. That's something which we will set up in the next year. Okay, that's sort of the physics part, but then there's also, of course, electronics necessary. As you will see, in our approach, we actually have a strong emphasis also on cryoelectronics, and this is actually then represented by Stefan van Waasen in our Central Institute for Electronic Analysis. And then finally, what makes Jülich actually an exceptional place in this context, we believe, is the presence, of course, of the Jülich Supercomputing Center, where there are also activities on quantum information processing, and this will play actually an important role in our strategy. Okay, so I don't know how much we have already talked about content. Of course, I think everybody is aware of the fact that there are various platforms, various qubit platforms, which could be used for a quantum computer, ranging from more exploratory ones, like, for example, qubit space and topological insulators, to superconducting qubits who are relatively mature. And since it's not yet clear which will be the winning technology in the end, we actually have determined to work on all of them. But of course, the challenges in these respective fields are different ones. Here in the superconducting qubits, it is more integration and connectivity, whereas for the more exploratory topological insulator-based qubits, it is actually, establishing first of all that you can make a qubit on that basis. And then underlying all of this is actually quite a strong activity in Jülich, which is about quantum materials and design quantum systems, because that's where a lot of the people in the PGI actually are coming from, and that's where their strength and competence is. And we believe that by combining dedicated quantum qubit research with quantum materials will actually create added value. And then finally, as I said already, there is the Jülich Supercomputing Center, and there people actually simulate quantum computers, and they also work towards making them accessible for users at a very early stage. Okay, so now let me just look at this here. So this is basically, as we always say, there are three pillars of Jülich's interest in quantum activities. On the one hand, there is this strong emphasis on quantum materials, which is basically our DNA, which we've brought from the past in the Peter Grünberg Institute. Then there is the more recent activity going into quantum computing devices. And then, of course, there's also the Supercomputer Center, which is, of course, also a long-time member of Jülich already, but which is moving towards becoming a user facility also for quantum computation. So because of this, we have essentially decided that there should be 6 or 7 research areas in which we concentrate our activity. And just to say briefly again, the first one is superconducting qubits and qubit systems. You have the corresponding names here. And the idea here is that superconducting qubits are, of course, the ones which are most mature, and therefore they are at this point in time best suited to actually explore large-scale integration. And this is actually what this research area is going to be about. Then the second research area is semiconducting spin qubits for scaling to millions of qubits. Here, the first task will be to bring this up to the level of the superconducting qubits, and once this is achieved, then also go into the connectivity and scaling up. And one particular aspect is that this technology is easy to use in combination with cryoelectronics, so will be the first thing which is combined with this cryoelectronic method. Then a relatively new player in the qubit zoo, of course, is the Majorana zero mode. There we have actually quite a strong effort in topological materials coming from the materials research side, and this is going to be extended into trying to make Majorana-based qubits. That, of course, has not yet been shown, but if we, and in fact, even the existence of these Majorana zero modes is not yet fully proven. However, if one can actually make a qubit from this, this would be the final proof that these zero modes exist in the form which theorists predict them, and so this would be kind of one of the first goals in this area. And then there is quantum materials, design quantum systems and dynamical control. Nobody knows whether maybe even a qubit concept, which is not even known yet, will finally work out to be the best one. And therefore, actually, we are going to continue working with quantum materials, trying to study the elements of entanglement, of coherent control, and so on a basic science level, in order to be ready if something new comes up to jump onto that bandwagon. The fifth topic is optical connectivity and quantum networking. And the sixth one is integration and control systems. This is actually the thing which is strongly focused on electronics, and in particular on cryoelectronics, in order to be able to address all these many qubits. And then finally, the work which is carried out in the Jülich Supercomputing Center, which is about essentially providing access at a very early stage for users to quantum computing devices, but also to simulate quantum computers and to learn from that side how a quantum computer should best be built. Of course, all of this is not just in Jülich, but it is embedded into a large network of different collaborations. And this view graph just summarizes the most important ones. So in material science, in quantum materials and quantum phenomena, there are strong contacts to KIT, to HZB, the University in Würzburg, and also to Delft. Quite recently, in fact, we were very lucky because this ML4Q Excellence Cluster, which is a cluster in the Excellence Initiative in Aachen, Cologne, and Bonn, together with Jülich, has been granted. So that will be a lot of opportunities for us. ML4Q stands for matter and light for quantum computation, so really directly related, and strengthens our links to our local universities. Then, of course, material characterization and nanofabrication is something very important. Okay. Times? Okay, yeah. Well, I try to be as fast as possible. There is other activities, in fact, which are already funded. Scalable solid-state quantum computing, for example, together with KIT, is a Impulse and Vernetzungsform project. And there is, through the flagship, the Open Super Q, which again combines these players here in order to make Jülich sort of a place where first steps can be made towards European supercomputer. Quantum computer. Okay, so which strategies do we follow? Generally, well, we want to do research and development from quantum materials to system integration, so the whole back. We will integrate theory groups. We will actually integrate also users from an early stage, because much of this research of making quantum computers is actually or should be driven by users, by applications. And we will, as I said in the beginning, evaluate and compare different approaches actually, because it's not yet clear which one will be the best in the end. So we try to fulfill a complete approach from basic research to system integration, and then trying to identify the most promising technology. All of this is embedded actually in a network of various institutions in Jülich. I've talked about the Peter Grünberg Institute before. There is a Helmholtz nano facility which will help us to make nanostructures. There is other infrastructure elements in Jülich which allow us to do materials characterization at a very high level. There is the JSC, which is able to then offer this to users. And in the center here in dark blue, there's a Helmholtz Quantum Center, which we have actually applied for, and which for us will become the focal point of these activities. So where do we want to be in 10 years' time? Well, we want to help to build up a platform for research and development in the field of quantum computing as a national and also European, let's say, hub. We hope that in 10 years' time, quantum systems of at least some description will be integrated in the modular exascale environment, which is present at the JSC. We hope that we have been able then at this stage to evaluate and realize different qubit systems and maybe see a bit clearer where the journey will go. Hopefully also a lot of progress until that time will have been made on cryo-electronics in order for controlling these circuits. And all this together would we would hope that this would constitute at least a significant step towards the development of the European quantum computer. Okay, with this I thank you for your attention, and I apologize for coming just in time and also maybe talking for a bit too long. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've seen here also a lot of basic research on materials. We've had a bit of a discussion about materials, quantum phenomena before. So if there's additional comments to that, further questions on the presentation?
Maybe the highest. You have shown already a nice vision for your center, which in principle includes already everything. So, who else do you need then?
Well, we need many people, in fact. First of all, Jülich, of course, is not just the Peter Grünberg Institute, but it already is quite a big group of people from very different fields. I hope I made this clear. And then also, of course, all of these people which we have on this list, we actually do need. But the idea is a little bit that our quantum center, we will become, let's say, a node within this network, within this European network. And for example, this Open Super Q, actually, which is an activity from the flagship, you see all these people come together, and they have actually decided to make Jülich the place where they will actually try to set up this first, nascent supercomputer, a quantum computer based on superconducting qubits.
Sorry to interrupt. I think you are not answering this question because he asked politely, but what I hear is, oh, well, now will Jülich take over all quantum in Helmholtz? Well, what about the other quantum centers? He didn't say that, he was very polite, But this is a very important question that we have to answer here, right? Because unless we have that, we have failed completely these 2 days and we have wasted our time. By the way, he was Mr. Yes, yes, please.
It's really an important question we want to do. Just to answer it straight, almost nothing we can do alone. We have a lot of competence that we can do alone as in basic research on materials. Also, when it comes to quantum simulation in the supercomputing center, there we are an autark community. But everything else, as you see in this list, we do in cooperation. And even with the corporations we have, I would dare the claim that the effective mass is not high enough. Our competitors are not next door. Our competitors are overseas. They are in other parts of Europe. So the effective mass on these really system integration problems on be it superconducting qubit or semiconductor, whatever, is not enough. So we need partners. We believe that the best partners and reliable partners for the find first of all within Helmholtz and the universities nearby. But this we have to foster and we brought down a kind of a strategy that Stefan has presented here. When we speak with collaboration partners, they want to know what is your vision, where you want to go. So we have to start with a clear picture. This is our picture we have, and now we need the partners to make it a success story. It's not done yet.
Let me be a little bit more negative of that because this is a perfect answer that you give when you talk to collaboration partners. But we are not yet there. So let me be more negative. Okay. So what I hear is he didn't say that, but what I hear is, we have a gap here. We are missing something. He says, I don't see so much the involvement, broad involvement of Helmholtz centers. Yeah. And of course, the right answer is we need collaboration and some support, but I still see that we have to do some work here. Yes. So that's a very important question mark, which is still open for me. Yeah. And that's very important. So I'm highlighting this, of course, not to speak against my beloved colleagues from Munich, but just to say that we have, as long as we are inside among ourselves, we have to be negative, we have to be critical. Otherwise, this question will come up and will kill us.
So we have to be critical. So you swamp us with a lot of things. So what is the rationale? What is really the strategy?
Well, I mean, the strategy really is maybe shown here. So we want to really make a significant contribution towards building a European quantum computer eventually. Of course, this is a very long-term vision. And as Professor Schmidt said, I mean, what we need for that, we have sort of created a framework, but this framework needs to be filled, and partly it can be filled with our activities, partly it can be filled with the activities of others, which either are already our collaboration partners or are going to become partners. And I mean, we really see this as a kind of a moon landing project. Where, I mean, it's completely out of the question that something at this scale could be done by Jülich or by any other institution just alone. Maybe Google can do it, I don't know. But they have, of course, orders of magnitude more money than we have. Yeah.
But then this is useful because it says, okay, there are many, many things. We see Jülich is powerful, great. What is your red line? And he answered that. Actually, it's on the slide, so you see. And then the question to answer what you said is, okay, what's in there for me in Dresden? Okay, in this. And then the reciprocal will be asked from the others. But I mean, unless we have a convincing, clear-cut answer to this, and if we have only generic answers, then this integration will not be there, evidently, and we are less strong. So that's very important. It's not about being critical to, it's not being critical towards or against someone else. It's about being, inter-partner. I don't know how to say that in.
Perhaps I can give a partial but more complete answer. There are very complete and live connections to KIT from overlap, where right now they have much more expertise. Have also control electronics, that's complementary. And there are in some aspects very active connections. At the same time, I think honesty is our first to really go to common vision. But all the other centers come on other knowledge
just for the discussion later with Ossendorf, because your relation via TU Dresden and Würzburg and our relation with topological indicators, that should be a subject to discuss. Yes, you got the cluster, we got the cluster, so somewhere it is obvious that we should discuss that.
So one answer to your question is what we need is bundling competence on materials.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But then it will be good if, and we will have opportunities, of course, to develop this further, but during your other presentations, if you can already start connecting to what the others are doing and what's in there for you, and somebody give a comment afterwards, that would be great. Of course, if this thing would be a Jülich or Jülich/KAT dominated thing, we have lost, we can forget it. Okay, that should be very clear.
Publication.
What? Hey?
Fabrication.
Fabrication.
What do you mean by fabrication?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment we do not make the superconducting qubits in Jülich. I've shown you this activity here, Open SuperQ. That's actually based on superconducting qubits, and there are various institutions here who make them, who will actually bring these devices to Jülich, and then they will be integrated and finally, in fact, even integrated into the supercomputer. I mean, whether we are going to start actually making our own superconducting qubits, yes or no, is, I think, at the moment not yet clear. I mean, we have this PGI 13, which I mentioned, which is going to be a new institute, and of course, there it's not yet clear who's going to take that over, and of course, this person will decide in the end what he's going to do, and of course, we are looking for specific things. So that's actually not yet clear. It depends on who's going to take over that and set it up.
So for the present discussion, though, I say that this question is a central one. Actually, are we going within Helmholtz or to fabricate superconducting qubits or not, is about 40 to 50% of the weight that our strategy will take at national and European level, how we answer that question. So for sure, we cannot wait for a certain Berufung in Jülich to be performed to answer that question. We have to do this in the next several weeks or months. What is the direction we're going to take? Because this is a question which is, what is the Helmholtz strategy to this? I know I'm being brutal, but...
One, so we know now IBM and other companies are so much ahead. So is the strategy just to follow or to find alternative application, alternative so are we going to create those 20 qubit gates?
But to give an answer for the European strategy, the answer is yes. We are going to create a 20 qubit machine. This is the purpose of this project. By the way, IBM is no longer there. They flew out, as you know. And this is partly due to this tension that we discussed, and they are very angry, so I have to do some conflict management there. But that's what we want to do, and will be the first or not, it doesn't matter. Because the point is, as several people said before, build the first quantum computer in Germany or in Europe, yeah. And even if the Americans have done it 2 years before, still there are many reasons not to have to buy it from the Americans, because when you buy a server for secure communications, you are guaranteed that it is either Cisco or Huawei, and it will have a backdoor. And this is sufficient reason for not worrying so much if we arrive 2 years later, provided we do. That's the European strategy.
I'm just coming from CERN, and people up there was a clear statement from CERN that they would cooperate with the industry because they have easy technology, easy for cooling systems, and I think it was very big for a cooperation. How do
you consider this here?
I think this is again another pointer. I think another pointer to a very clear direction of cooperation that, in my opinion, should take place. And at the moment, it's a question for everybody whether it makes sense, and we are taking note of that because it's going to feed into the policy. Absolutely. I saw some hands raised, but no. And we are catching up with a little bit with our so we were 17 minutes late, and now we are only 13 minutes late. So that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Should we continue with DLR?
Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Robert Axmann. I'm working for DLR, for the German Aerospace Center, and I'm presenting today what we are doing in DLR. So we are engineering research. We are doing engineering research. I slightly changed one of the last slides, just correcting a little error, but I think it's now the original presentation. So there is a little mistake on the last slide. The slides are basically in German because we expected the presentation to be in German. That's for information. And DLR is focusing on engineering research. So we are not doing that much basic research, but engineering research. And in our DLR, we do have mainly 3 different institutes active in the area of quantum research. It's the Institute of Space Technologies with the group of Professor Dr. Klaus Wachsmeier in Rome. It's the Institute for Communication Navigation, Professor Dr. Christoph Günther, and the Institute for Software and Simulation Science in Cologne, Mr. Rolf Hempel. And we are active in the areas of quantum metrology, sensoric, of course, clocks, and let me say computing information techniques, quantum information techniques. Me, myself, I'm working directly for the member of the board in the program strategy department. So I'm providing just the overview. Where are we active? In which areas are we active? So if you have here a look at all the projects, we say, for example, like the project Advantage, we are focusing on activities concerning satellite navigation, geodesy, providing technologies for small satellites, for quantum key distribution, optical transport of information by optical links, development of space optical clocks. Those are our activities in the Institute in Bremen, the group of Professor Wachsmeier. And if you have a look at our cooperation partner, we have, of course, internal cooperation within DLR with other institutes, with GFZ, of course, with the ESA, the European Space Agency, and of course with industry, because we are doing engineering research, we have a strong focus of industry, contact of transfer into industry, application, bringing in application to industry. For quantum sensors, we are cooperating in group together with Hanover, with Professor Rabel, with Ulm, Professor Schleich, and Professor Peters in Berlin, and of course, again, with ESA industry. For quantum engineering, that's, I think, something that Professor Wachsmeier is doing on its own, and quantum optics is also something with Hanover, Ulm, Berlin, and industrial partners. In the Institute of Communication and Navigation, as I mentioned, we are focusing mainly on transferring data between satellites, quantum key distribution, so space-based quantum key distribution. We are also active in the area of navigation with the Galileo Competence Center, the group of Professor Günther, and we have research on post-quantum cryptography. So we have a group in Cologne doing research in the area of quantum cryptography and quantum computing, and also what happens if quantum computers are able to break the current cryptography, what comes afterwards. And our cooperation partners here are, for example, in industry Menlo Systems, TSAT, GFZ, Technical University of Munich, and PTB in Braunschweig. And again, also for the Galileo Competence Center, GFZ, and PTB. For quantum key distribution, with the second university in Munich, the LMU, with the MPE of Light, the Technical University of Munich, and TSAT and SES, we are doing the research on quantum-based key distribution and the post-quantum cryptography. Our partners are there, TUM and Universities of Zurich and Gallen have done. For simulation and software technique, the research, Mr. Schollenberg is here with us together, and if there are questions, I think he can elaborate a little bit more on that. But basically, our questions are, what are the applications? Where can we apply quantum computing for, let me say, real world problems, for example, air traffic management, can be seen here down on the left side. How can we use machine learning, and how can we use quantum simulation and quantum compiling? So how can we bring software onto quantum computers? And please correct me, Mr. Schoenberg, if I'm wrong with it. Cooperation partners, Forschungszentrum Jülich, of course, NASA Ames. We are very active together with NASA in the use of quantum computing, the University of Köln, Saarbrücken, and Magdeburg. So what is our intention in the area of research? So for us, it's basically that we are trying to find the application areas in the area of space for quantum technology, to fly demonstration missions, to develop new architectures for navigation systems based on quantum technology. And the interesting points for us are, of course, measurement of accelerations, times, frequencies, onboard satellites. So we have a strong focus on the transfer into space. Quantum algorithm, we hope to become experts in the area of applications for quantum algorithm, and like to develop the software and the hardware to use quantum computing. For the 10 years vision, it's of course for us interesting to see that quantum technologies gather the visibility, or more visibility in the future, that we can strengthen our economy in Germany. So industry, the industry transfer. Tommaso Carlaco mentioned already that we discussing and thinking about how can we transfer those technologies into industrial applications. Let me say on a very short path, not within long innovation time, but on a very short path. And the second point for our 10-year vision is that we like to see in the future of Earth observation and geodesy new sensors, new technologies to enable missions like LISA Pathfinder, with very specific requirements concerning the precision of the position determination. And we are also interested in terrestrial applications like mobility, based on inertial sensing. And another vision of us is that we have experimental satellite missions, basically satellite missions, that showed that quantum key distribution works worldwide on optical links over satellite. Based on the fact that we are also active in the area of quantum computing, we like to develop quantum algorithms for the future, so that we are able to move real-world problems on quantum computing and show that those applications are working. And the last point, or the most important point for us, is enabling the technology transfer into industry with new concepts, new ideas, how to bring money into industry to show that applications exist for quantum computing. Thank you very much.
So maybe you did it when I went to the restroom, but can you comment on the 3 new centers that DLR is proposing to create?
We wrote in the papers we did before and in the discussions already what our ideas are for those centers, but up to now we don't have anything on that. So what we showed here is what we are doing now at the moment, and we are discussing the 650 million, let me say, more or less, within this area, and we can't say anything on that at the moment. So it's basically what we are doing now, and where we do have the competences and the working groups, and the visions and the ideas are based on the working groups that exist already.
Okay, so let me try again. Since we are having a discussion internal to Helmholtz Mannschaft here, what can you tell us about the status? So how is this progressing? Of course, there is no official statement, or not.
Yeah.
But how is the thing really going? Because we heard about that, of course we knew, but then we didn't hear. So is it stopped? How likely is it? Are they killing it? Will it survive? So what's the real, to get a real feeling for this?
Yeah.
Let's say internally.
Yeah, I can't provide any real status. So it's something we hope that it will become reality in the future. But from my experience, we have many activities within DLR that took several years of discussion without materializing at the end. So we don't have any status if it's coming or not coming. Yeah. So we voted into the concept paper together with you, of course, because we hope it's coming, but I can't say anything.
Who is deciding on this?
I think the decision is finally made by the ministry. The Bundeswirtschaftsministerium, of course. Yeah. So.
The last status is that it is going to decision, or is it still being processed?
I think it's going to be decided very soon, but we don't know.
Very good.
Hopefully, yes.
Could you please go back to the transparency where you wrote at the end, DLR is a condensation point for something. I just couldn't read it. I was too slow in reading.
Do you know the number?
Oh yeah, there. I was just too slow in reading.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's that's our idea of the future. So we hope that we as DLR are for the future are expected as a, let me say, as an expert for quantum technology within space. So not for everything, but for space.
Just at the beginning, and so I wanted to ask what comes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think this is fantastic because this is very clearly orthogonal to most things that we have in other fields, and it covers a very important part of the spectrum. Yeah. Actually, one of my hopes would be that maybe your expertise in the direction of quantum communication might not just be restricted to space in the sense, because this would give yet another strength to the Helmholtz strategy. Of course, you need also Earth stations for doing space quantum communication, and you will need to secure those channels and so on. So I think that sort of incorporating a little bit of Earth type activities. You mentioned inertial navigation, stuff like that. Those are all very good points because they're of course important for quantum technologies, and they would be unique to you, I would say, to some extent within Helmholtz, and they would help us argue that Helmholtz is really comprehensive. So how do you see that? So do you really have a strategy that you really want to just restrict in a restrictive sense onto space, or if these new institutes come to reality, will it sort of reach out to other directions, as I also hear when I read those proposals? So how do you see that?
I think we are, there's a slide, this one, I think we are coming from space. Let me put it this way: we are coming from space. But if we are going to extend the research to, let me say, ground-based application, and of course you are right. If you are going for quantum key distribution, we need the ground stations, we need the networks on ground, of course, and navigation solutions is not just space-based solutions; it's also ground-based solutions. So, of course, if we have the possibility, we like to extend our research, but basically we are focusing on space, of course. Yeah? And I see that the discussion on quantum materials or quantum computing, who's doing what, I think it's always a very valid question. Is everybody doing everything? And for us, for DLR, I think it's good that we know that our focal point is space, and if we are going to extend it, for example, for quantum computing applications, we have to ask ourselves, where are we going with quantum computing applications? Is this something that is related to space, or let me say to air traffic, so aerospace, or is it something that, let me say, Jülich is also doing? And does it make sense that everybody is doing everything?
No, of course not. So for me, the answer to that would be very easy. In quantum computing, you would be a user of the unique thing, yeah, because you would have use cases to apply to air traffic, let's say, or stuff like that. Okay. So this would be one thing. And instead on communication, because of course someone else is already doing that. But on communication, since I see that in some of the institutes which are to be funded, there is also some activity in quantum communication, this would be something which might make sense because I don't see it so strongly elsewhere, yeah? And so we could say, we could insist a little bit. So of course we are coming from space, but we are irradiating there. Or maybe you say, no, our strategy is, we don't do this, and here is where we connect with whatever in Germany. So that's the line that we have to draw, I guess.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we are coming from Earth. And so coming from there, it doesn't really take me by surprise that DLR has the ambition being the condensation point of expertise from whatever technology when the application is space. Because also from quantum technology, this is your mission. You cannot, fall behind that one. So this is not really surprising me. Therefore, my question is, where are your competitors or collaboration partners? Do you have a European strategy in the ESA context, or do you have even a strategy on quantum technologies, perhaps with North America also, or is that a DLR thing?
It's, let me say, a DLR thing. Of course, other nations like China are very active in this area, but it's not that we do have a strategy together with China or with the United States. And concerning industry, from our point of view, there's a real lack of active industry in the area of quantum technologies, of, let me say, industry of a significant size, because we do see the potential of those technologies, of those new sensors for, I think, measurement of time and acceleration. It's not just a space application. It's an application in space where we do need very small, very reliable instruments based on quantum technologies. But if something is going to work in space, it will also work down on Earth. It will work for cars, for ships, for everything. And we do see a lack of bigger industries. So we don't have corporations or strategies together with international partners, and we don't have industry or bigger industry in this area at the moment.
And ESA is a very, very, very large, complete mess. So there is no hope whatsoever that we are going ever to have a strategic one.
Am I too naive? I would speculate that whatever you find as technology, like first on Earth before it goes to space, or is it really so that it is first applied in space and then applied in cars? Wouldn't that be too risky for any space mission?
Well, we are doing some of the space missions just for the case of demonstration.
Okay, for research it's clear, but for real application, I mean, you would test it on Earth first.
Of course, yeah.
No, but well, Galileo 3 is actually the idea that using a quantum 2.0 atomic clock for navigation, that will difficulties on a satellite. Yeah. So there are some things which would first occur over there, some specific ones, like this example I made. But there are, so it's not like everything is taking place first here and then up there.
And then another question, you mentioned that you do not do so much basic research, but a lot of engineering research and then pushing the applications. which I think is fine for the role of the DLR. It's excellent, it's very good. But there comes a question, do you see in your research profile the need of adding expertise from other Helmholtz Center in the segment of basic research, which you simply don't want to do at DLR, but what you may need?
And more in general, where do you see the need to tap into expanding other Helmholtz centers?
Yeah, I think this is also an outcome of our discussion here and of the upcoming months, but it might be, for example, interesting for Mr. Stollenberg, who is here today. He's active in the area of quantum computing, development of algorithms for quantum computers, and I think it might be interesting to see what is your interest in basic research on quantum computing? What is your need on that? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
On the side of also the software hardware co-design. So from the application point of view, it's very important that we stay in touch with people who develop the hardware to together forward. So when you from an application point of view, if there's something missing in the hardware, how the hardware is working, as for this kind of application.
So my first feeling is that we can do more as a result of the discussion.
That's good news.
No, we must do more together for the same reason that we said before.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you go on with the silos, or with everyone building the rocket and sitting on it, and then going up, you know, we are going to pay miserably this whole thing that we are here to do, and we are not going to get that much money that we want. And this, if we succeed in drawing this line and seeing how much you want to do and how much you interact and so on, this is going to strengthen the case for the new institutes, for instance. Yeah, because a lot of this activity might take place in the new institutes, and so it will give additional reasons for that to happen. Carl, has a question? You are commenting.
When seeing this slide, was from our theoretical side, developing optimization algorithms, developing quantum simulations. This is completely on our agenda, and I think we can only profit from each other together, or that explains either actually a very big overlap.
Yeah.
On this.
Maybe I can ask the audience also a question, because we from our DLR side see the need of industrial cooperation, industrial transfer. I don't know how do the other centers see this. Is it a problem? Is it considered to be a problem? Is everybody focusing on basic research and that's it? Or what's the view of the other centers concerning this? Because we from the BMWI, Bundeswirtschaftsministerium, they are pushing us very hard to interact with industry.
Also, BMBF is pushing us very hard to do that, and we are not happy with it, and they consider insufficient what we have at the moment. Statement from yesterday from Unterabteilungsleiter 5.2.
And so maybe here I can say something because it's also related to DLR. So we have the plan currently to set up a Helmholtz innovation lab. And as first partners, we are thinking about DLR, also Airbus, because that's already it's nicely together. And then other partner will be Volkswagen, because they're interested in it. So then we already have two Helmholtz centers, and we have two big industry partners. So that we are just starting with, but then a clear connection to industry and a lot connected to industry.
Okay, so this is considered to be a real asset for the roadmap for Ms. Kalicek. Yeah, so it should be clearly written also in the roadmap. Industry connection.
Must.
That's great. Okay.
But I think I realized for myself that we have a problem. Because when the ministry asked me, I always excuse Jülich and Karlsruhe a little bit by saying this is a DLR. They have the perfect relation to industry and they have all the collaboration. And because you raised now the same question, I see that we have a real problem.
Yes.
Here we need a strategy that goes beyond eventual project that pops in our minds. We need kind of a strategy how to develop that.
We discussed that when was it 2 days ago with Mr. Wissler and Mr. Marquardt, in terms of this what Crystal is mentioning, like open innovation hub type of direction, and part of the discussion with Peter Jott with Traeger afterwards goes a little bit in that direction, and this has been actually stimulated by the conversation we had with Mr. Axman and Mr. Vitus the other day, because this is for us much more Baustelle than it is for DLR. And we have to do this, and the NDF is going to demand that from us. Yes, but we should not forget to say who we are. Sorry.
So I just comment what I expect from what I need for sense of activity. The area, the device is like can provide a rich fundamental approach and development and
yeah, of course, and if I'm remembering your slide on the TRL, and I think HGF was a little bit more on the left side than DLR fields, honestly. So I think we are very much on the TLR or the higher TLR levels shortly before industry. And I think, of course, yeah, we do have the connections and we do see the need for the application. So I think we can be or might be the bridge to industry.
Please,
yeah.
Okay. One last comment.
I'm curious to learn a little bit more what you're doing in quantum compiling. Something obviously quite generic.
Yeah, I think that question can be answered by Mr. Stollenberg.
Something we just started and we just came across to put something on early devices. Now get your chance to compile to work with this hardware. So you need it fun. Of course, we would always do this for specific first, not try to find general kind of I think sometimes people will
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've had some fruitful discussion already. We have 3 more talks, but it looks like some of you could use a coffee. I could. So let's have a short break, 10 minutes, and then continue with the next talk.
And after the 3 talks which are coming then, we have a bit longer break so that you may also have the opportunity to make calls or emails as you need.